Hello and welcome to the Food Programme. I'm Sheila Dillon, and in this edition we're talking Food Festival jollity that's got a bit more bottom to it than you might expect. A crisp autumn day at the Aldeburgh Food and Drink Festival in Suffolk. There's a buzz, people thrilling over food bites, talking to producers at the many stands, cooking demos and masterclasses, the Food Festival experience. But the fact is, Aldeburgh is not your average food festival. It's not just food as delicious entertainment. It came into being 20 years ago, set up by two local landowners, farmers, campaigners, and investors in food and farming. They understood what too many politicians and policymakers still don't get. That good farming and good food, sold in the area where it's produced, are keys to economic success that in turn create jobs, support national food security, public health, and a strong sense of community.
It stands for much more than just being a food festival. It makes you think about appreciating and supporting food which comes locally, and really, I think throughout the UK, we should all be doing that in our areas.
What cheesemaker Johnny Crickmore says seems to have more resonance said in the shadow of Snape Maltings, the grand complex of buildings on the edge of the Snape Marshes, where the festival's taking place, that's been the centre of the food trade since the mid-19th century. Until, in the years after World War II, it metamorphosed into perhaps Britain's most original and beautiful music place, the home of the Aldeburgh Festival of Music and the Arts, founded by Benjamin Britten and Peter Pears.
Hold the festival, which must be one of the most beautiful landscapes in England, where you look out from these marvellous old Maltings buildings across a view which is almost primeval of water and marshes and reeds and forest in the distance.
It is amazing walking down here. The bunting everywhere and flags. I mean, the sun is shining, which helps. And great smells everywhere. Oh, God. We're walking down one of the alleyways between these old malting buildings toward one of the theatres where cooking's going on.
So I'm going to give you two recipes. You might come and help me for a bit, because talking and cooking at the same time, when you've got ADHD, actually it's a kind of, maybe it's good for people with ADHD. Anyway, whatever, we're going to do it. I sometimes lose my thread and I often talk too much.
Yeah, my name's Tommy Myers. I've been coming to Aldeburgh Food Festival for over 15 years. I think actually maybe the first time I came I had a baby in arms, 3 months old, and I was just completely taken by the stands. Like there's an apple stand that comes every year and the apples are so delicious, and you think if every kid in the country could eat an apple with this flavour, it would revolutionise apple eating in this country. So the essence of this, the ethos of it is all about the producers, getting the producers in contact with us citizens. We need access to great quality ingredients, and here it is in spades, and everything tastes so good.
I'm David Wright from Pump Street Bakery and Chocolate. This festival is an incredible advert and boost for local producers. I think it's always stuck true to its core beliefs. One of the main things is that it kind of rejected the idea of getting lots of much bigger producers in. It's always supported small producers, and you can kind of follow the story of some amazing foods like Fen Farm Dairy. You think about their cheese, Baron Bygod cheese, which is almost internationally renowned now, but started off as a small little stand at this festival. And there's so many stories like that. So it's a really special place.
It was really special a long time ago. But that specialness hadn't solidified into a celebration and a way of ensuring the specialness's survival until two local farmers took a trip to a food festival not so far away.
20 years ago, things were very different.
William Kendall, local farmer, serial investor in quality food companies and co-founder of the Aldeburgh Food Festival.
Because it's a very remote part of eastern Britain, we didn't have supermarkets on every street. And so there were lots of artisan food producers left over from an earlier food system. And they were all, I don't think they thought they were part of an ecosystem. I think they just thought they were just carrying on doing what they'd always doing. And they were hanging on in there because they didn't have anything else to do. But it was looking quite fraught. And Caroline and I went to another food festival. We went to Ludlow and had a really lovely weekend and thought, this is great. But I remember us driving back in the car on the way back and said, well, that was great, but we could do something even better. And then we did very little about it for a bit. Then our other fellow directors actually made it happen with us. And at the time, it was really just telling all those people who were left that they were part of a system. They weren't doing it on their own, that this was actually a good thing. And then on the back of it, we found that actually more and more people are interested in it. We found people were using the festival as an opportunity to try something they'd always wanted to do. Somebody who might have a job in an office but wanted to try smoking fish or doing something. And the festival gave them an opportunity to talk to 10,000 food enthusiasts over a weekend and test their idea. And so I think it's increasingly become the future rather than the sort of thing that's looking back and trying to hang on to what was always there. I mean, it's brilliant that we've still got people who were there 20 years ago, and some of them are absolutely thriving and they've got bigger, and usually they're the next generation are now running them. So that's helped as well. It's not just new businesses, it's actually new generations. But I don't think in our wildest dreams we realised that we were actually going to create a platform for a new entrepreneurial world in rural Suffolk.
The we, the Caroline, in that story of wild dreams is farmer, landowner and campaigner Lady Caroline Cranbrook. Long before the festival was a spark in anyone's eye, she'd done a piece of research that changed everyone's understanding about local food.
My name's Caroline Cranbrook. I live in Suffolk, which in the past was not famous for good food. It was infamous for the cheese it produced, called the Suffolk Bang. Too hard to cut, too big to swallow, in the pig trough, see it waller. Well, we've come a long way from that. And Suffolk, I would like to think, is one of the foremost counties in England for good food and good drink.
Caroline is a seasoned campaigner. In 2001, she and sheep farmer Bob Kennard won Campaigners of the Year at the BBC Food and Farming Awards for their work to keep small and medium-sized abattoirs open, essential for the future of mixed farming. But her fame as a farming hero had come earlier, when she took on Tesco, Britain's largest supermarket chain. Tesco were planning a large out-of-town supermarket close to the town of Saxmundham in East Suffolk, and like all supermarkets trying to get planning permission, they were making great claims for the economic benefits this behemoth would bring. Caroline was sceptical.
What I did is I got out my clipboard and I went round and interviewed every single shop I could find within about a 20-mile radius of where I lived in Great Glimmer in East Suffolk, and had a questionnaire. First of all, I would look round the shop and see what sort of things they were selling, and then I would talk to them and go through my questionnaire and produced a database of local food and drink businesses and which of all these little shops were buying it. And I came to this conclusion that although these little shops were economically almost irrelevant, they were incredibly important as a way in which a food business can get started. They were the seedbed for local food production. I then made a database of all the local food and drink they were sourcing, and I then went back to these producers and interviewed them and discovered how important these local shops were for start-up businesses and also keeping the business going. And they would learn how to do it and whether their product was any good or not and whether they needed to change it in some ways. And then they were ready to go into the wider world and become perhaps suppliers to supermarkets. But these small shops, I discovered, were an absolutely essential part of the whole local food chain.
What was very interesting to me as a journalist was to see that what you did, going around with your clipboard, first of all to the shops and then to the farmers and the food producers, you were doing what no one else had done, which seems, now academics have taken up this idea. But the report you produced was then published by the Council for the Preservation of Rural England and called Food Web. And now people, economists, study what you saw so clearly then, that when you have a web of small farmers and small producers and small retailers, money stays in the region. When you have just giant supermarkets, money goes out.
That is absolutely true. And it is I think that local food production is a virtuous circle, because the money as you have said, the money on the whole remains within the area, within the community, whereas money spent in a large supermarket is in Geneva or wherever within seconds of it being spent there. So economically, the whole local food businesses are, I think, incredibly important for the countryside.
Caroline, together with Clipboard, surveyed 81 food shops across 7 market towns and 19 villages. These local shops, in turn, dealt with nearly 300 local food producers and wholesalers. Her research had untangled what would become known as a food web knitted across East Suffolk. Almost all the shops told her that they thought they'd close immediately were the giant Tesco to be built. Her evidence was presented at the local council's planning committee, and the supermarket plans were rejected. The East Suffolk food web lived on, and a further report in 2006 confirmed it was flourishing.
If you want to launch a new food product or to learn how to sell the food that you produce, you have to do it on a small scale. You cannot, with very few exceptions, go straight to the supermarket and say, look, I've got this very special sort of bread, or look, I have a most amazing meat, would you like to take some of it? So it is very important to have small local shops which are able to source food locally. And so this provides not only a way in which people can buy delicious local food, but is also very important, is a training ground for local food producers. Very few of the supermarkets actually want to sell local products. It is no good turning up at the supermarket with a little bit of homemade cheese and saying, would you like to buy this? Because our whole system can't accommodate it. They need to deal with established businesses. And it's these small shops in our villages and towns which provide the seedbed for really the whole of the local food industry.
There is now a Tesco in the centre of Saxmundham, but half the size of that out-of-towner that Caroline Cranbrook opposed. There's a Waitrose too, just opposite, that promised to stock more products from local suppliers when it first opened, and the supermarket told us it continues to do that today, crediting the inspiration provided by Lady Caroline. Caroline Cranbrook's research methods have since been adopted by many other official bodies and economists. CPRE, the Council for the Preservation of Rural England, which published her first report, now has a guide on its website for everyone to draw up their own food web. To figure out what Suffolk's food web means in the daily life of a food business, I headed into Aldeburgh to a restaurant with rooms noted for its local produce, the Suffolk. The Suffolk is owned and run by George Pell, who came here from London, where he'd worked in the restaurant business for more than 15 years. He'd offered to take us on part of his shopping trip. So, out of the Suffolk front door and turn left.
Here we are, on the high street. It's an incredible high street, really, I think, because it's still got everything you could dream of in your quintessential chocolate box English high street. We've got a butcher who we'll go and see, Gerard. We've got a great deli, we've got a fishmonger, bookshops, coffee shops, lovely bakery at the end. So it's got kind of everything. 2 fish and chip shops, rumoured to be the best in the country. They've won awards, and Ed Sheeran loves it. So, there it is. Can't get better than that.
Is that what attracted you to taking on this?
I'll be totally honest. I was one of the kind of lucky people that discovered it by chance. I'd grown up on the West Coast. I'd never really even holidayed or come to the East Coast of England. And after COVID, we kind of came here to do a pop-up on a short-term basis, which then turned into a 5 years later situation. So very quickly understood that this was somewhere that I probably wanted to stay for a while. Kind of beats being in the mean streets of London. So an awesome place. You hear a lot of horror stories of people moving to the countryside, moving to rural communities and not feeling like they have a place or not feeling like they're part of it. We were here and sort of blow-ins really, and the local community embraced us, and that made it a lot more fun because you feel like you've got a purpose to do something. Using local producers is our kind of mantra. and it's so far working. And I think people appreciate the extra effort we make spending our time sourcing good ingredients, working with local growers, and taking advantage of all the other amazing producers that live and work in Suffolk.
What was the reaction when you opened the restaurant and you highlighted the food that's local?
Yeah, I think really positive. I believe that it takes one or two places to kind of share the same philosophy about sourcing locally, and then it becomes kind of a trend or a movement, and we certainly, as soon as we got here, it was kind of funny really, because part of the decision to source this way was kind of forced. Our hand was forced because of the, say, supply issues to rural counties. You don't have the big wholesalers that would deliver here, so we kind of got here, and I called a few companies I work with in London, and it was a kind of, no, we don't deliver there, mate. We don't go that far. You can pay for us to send a transit, or you can come pick it up, but we don't go there. And I thought, okay, golly, it's going to be a bit harder than I realised doing this, and that quickly moved us into sort of asking around, who does this, who does that, and through that we stumbled upon and got introduced to some of these brilliant sort of local, smaller producers, people that we still work with sort of 5 years later, and that's great. We're really, really lucky. Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing to be part of, actually. Kind of makes you that sense of connection back to land and people that are making a real effort to give you nutritious, delicious food. And I know people always say it's romanticising it, but it does taste better.
So now we're approaching where the fishing boats are, up on the shingle.
We're going to meet Steve and Emma Whiteman, who are a local fishing family, which is great. That's the key word, family, not just an individual. They're expanding their fleet. They're based up in Lowestoft. They've got a smokehouse up there. They come off the beach here. They do lobsters. They're a really great group of people driving a sense, I suppose, of revival. This used to be the epicentre, really, the east coast of sort of sprat fishing. And they used to have massive sprat dinners, and where we are at the Suffolk is where they used to hold these huge sprat dinners. They used to race sprat, yeah. So they used to race sprats here, like the Beaujolais Nouveau. We had sprat racing. Those days are sadly gone, but there is still, there's still space for sort of small scale fishing.
So hi, I'm Emma Whiteman, and I'm married to Steve Whiteman, who's part of the sort of iconic Whiteman fishing family that have lived in Aldeburgh for well over 200 years now. And we've got a couple of sons who are skippers of our boats, as is Steve, and we've got 5 boats, 4 up in Lowestoft and 1 that fishes from the beach off in Aldeburgh.
And what do you catch from Aldeburgh?
So that's very seasonal. So at the moment it's Dover soles, it's lobsters, and there can be some crabs if you put in your crab pots. If you go in the river, you can get oysters. You get a lot of bass in the river as well.
Yeah. I saw some pictures of skate yesterday.
Yeah, skate.
Someone pulled out 4 big skate.
Yeah, but it's not, so it's quality you catch, not huge quantity. And that's why the fish on the front is a premium, because of the quality.
Here we are, Georgia, on this. I mean, it isn't really a shopping trip because you've done your shopping, but, what did you buy today?
What have we got? Well, lobsters is the key thing at the moment.
Yes,
so that's kind of, that's the great thing, because we know that they guarantee an incredible quality. People come to us for a lobster, we have to make sure it's the best in class, and these guys are the people that will do that.
And you had some of Alex's soles, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you can actually say that the boat that it came off, Emma Clare.
Exactly, and that kind of sourcing, that origin is really, really important. It becomes more important to customers as well.
We work really hand in hand. There'll be days where we've got oysters in from Pinneys and we don't sell them, and Dan will text George and say, George, or Luke, the chef, and say, we've got these, do you want them? Oh, yeah, we'll have them. And the other days it'll work the other way. Your freezer broke down and we had... Yeah. We had all of the frozen stock up here for a short period of time while it was fixed, and that's
that was kind of
part of a community, isn't it?
That was one of the magic things I was saying earlier about the sense of being welcomed here and being able to work and collaborate.
Yeah.
Collaboration, a word you hear a lot in this food community by the sea. So over our mugs of tea and the inevitable seagulls whirling overhead, always good for radio sound effects, our conversation soon turned to the issues holding back an industry that used to thrive here. What is it that prevents there being 20 boats fishing out of Aldeburgh?
It's a combination. It's very expensive. If you have lost that continuity of a father passing it down to their son, it's so expensive to get started. So to give you an example, a small shack, a tiny boat, 150,000. So it's like almost buying a small farm or having another small terraced house that you've then got to either make work for you or pay for a mortgage. So unless you've got that backup of a family that's actually got that and can give you that, it's very hard to make that pay, as well as bringing enough money into a family environment.
Fishing from Aldeburgh doesn't pay for itself. It's essential that you have those 4 boats from Lowestoft.
It would do if I just wanted to employ me and my husband. But we don't, so we employ loads of youngsters because otherwise there's no, it's difficult, isn't it?
That's the key.
The employment, you need to get people in early and interested early. And like Dan, he's interested in becoming a skipper of the boat, but he's got to work through his mandatory courses. So we work like stink in the summer, and then in the winter we have a holiday, then we start doing the courses. And then the summer comes along, we start it all again. So it's quite a drawn-out process to get somebody up to being, a safe skipper. People are the huge key. There are no... when you listen to anything about fishing, they will all say, oh, fishing's dead on the water, There's no youngsters coming through. Well, there's no youngsters because no one's saying, come and work with me. And yes, get it wrong. And yes, well, I'll invest some time and some money in you, but get it wrong and you learn from it, because that's how you learn, isn't it? And if they did that, then we wouldn't have such a problem.
I think that's the key in a lot of food production. It's the same in hospitality. The reason they don't want to do the job is because you don't pay them properly, you don't train them, you don't give them... you have to go above and beyond now to get people through the system so they start young, green, and you get something out, but maybe 5 years.
And fishing is the same in hospitality. It's horrible hours.
Yeah.
If you wanted to say, would you like to go and work for 24 hours with a couple of hours sleep? It's a 4-6 scale and you might get a bacon butty thrown in. Do you think many people would say yes?
Is there any Wi-Fi?
No Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi. God, no.
We head back to the high street and away from the windy beach. Every few steps, George is stopped by someone wanting to chat. It's that sort of place. Soon, we find another of his suppliers.
Hello, my name's Gerard King, and I own Salter & King Butchers in Aldeburgh.
I've just talked to Caroline Cranbrook,
Have you?
And she was just really emphasising how in this East Suffolk, it's the butchers who sort of hold this food network together.
She's absolutely right. Of course we are. Yeah, no, there's some good butchers around here, so it's really good. And I'm glad she said that, actually. Yeah, no, I think we're important. There's not, they are throughout the country sort of dying out, but around here there's still a few of us about.
I think of you, from what I've read about you, what I've heard about you, that you are this core, that you have this network of farmers.
Yes.
So who are those farmers?
We try to source our meat from people we can trust. And then what that does is it's very easy for us as a team here to relay that to the customers as well. So we can talk about where the meat comes from. So, for example, cattle we're getting from down at Icon, just across the river. So Richard and Natasha Mann, they're real beautiful Lincoln Reds. So we get their beef from them when it's available. And then particularly this time of the year, for the food festival, we do their old cows. So they keep a couple of old cows and they're sort of 9, 10, 12 years at slaughter. We also get it from Emily Winter. She's got Lincoln Reds up in Dennington and Darrow Green Farm.
We're shopping with you, George, even though you shopped earlier. But, what do you get from here mostly?
Well, we're so lucky. You can see from the window display the amazing range. It's, the best meat we can get our hands on. And we just have to run across the road. So when we forget an order and we come, or Gerard goes on his gorgeous little bike with his basket, he comes over to us. So again, it's back to that community idea. We've got the best on our doorstep.
The final stop on our Suffolk shopping trip with George takes us 15 minutes inland to a mixed farm run by Aldeburgh Festival co-founder William Kendall, who we heard earlier.
This is it. This is as far as I travel from the coast. So we're now at Maple Farm, which is a fantastic project launched by William Kendall. He's one of those sort of food heroes that everywhere in the country needs, because he's invested in the future. So Will is, I suppose as an incubator, built this incredible facility at Maple Farm and given an opportunity to Alice Norman to open her kind of madly successful, brilliant bakery, Pinch. And it is now, I'd say, a hardcore part of the Suffolk pilgrimage. If you're coming here, that's where you go.
That's a lot of eggs.
Like George, Alice is another arrival from London. She was a chef in several top London restaurants until the pandemic brought her home to Suffolk.
Super long counter, and all of our products are laid out here every morning. So we have our crullers. A cruller is a deep fried ring of choux pastry, and it's a bit like a donut, but doesn't have that sort of stodgy feeling to it. It's light and airy and cloud-like, and it's then iced in various flavours, blackcurrant or chocolate, all that kind of stuff. And then the pizza comes out here. We've got 3 different flavours. So it's Roman pizza, thin, crispy, and at the moment it's just available by the slice, so you can just come and get a little savoury kick. And then coffee as well, gelato, which we make using Suffolk-inspired ingredients like St Jude and blackcurrant.
Is this not a thing of beauty?
This is a lovely room, and I mean the menu board's so thrilling.
It was an old turkey barn, so this was just a sort of crumbling wreck for the first 3 years of Pinch, and then William very kindly agreed to renovate it for us, and then we have a huge kitchen out back, and yeah, absolutely love it. It's amazing. Yeah.
So going back to when Alice first arrived here and she took over our little jam building, she said, well, so what's the deal? I said, there's no deal other than that we've got half a ton of blackcurrants in the freezer from last year, and the next crop are coming on. So everything you make has got to be made out of blackcurrants. And that didn't put her off, and you said, actually, that's the best thing.
Well, interestingly, I had never used blackcurrants, not once in my 10 years of working in restaurants, and I always thought, Ribena, that's quite strong connotations, and started using it, and now I'm absolutely addicted, particularly to the Maple Farm ones, because they are 10 out of 10, and we juice them all in the summer and then freeze the juice, and then we use it in our gelato. We make a shrub, cordials, slushies, icing, and yeah.
But Alice, you said the other thing is you said that in running top London restaurants, you had the choice of anything you wanted. You could get unicorn tears if you wanted them.
You get a product list every week of, list of sort of 50 to 100 fruits and vegetables, and you become quite spoilt in that sense. And I've really loved working here because there is such a limited amount of produce, and so you really have to think on your feet. How can I use a blackcurrant in a different way? How can I use St Jude in a different way? And I think that's a very, very different way of doing things compared to chef life in London. Yeah.
Or Manchester or Edinburgh or Aberdeen or Collaboration again, using what's fresh and local, whether that's the cow's milk soft cheese St Jude or inventing new ways to process William's blackcurrant glut as a glaze for sweet treats. The next day, we find Alice's crullers being served up from her tent at the Aldeburgh Food Festival to a very enthusiastic crowd.
So this blackcurrant cruller is like lighter than air, a little bit of chew, tangy, gorgeous glaze, and like this just insane deep crimson colour. And I could probably eat about 10, I think. Every time we come, we're like, should we just see how many we can eat before it all gets a bit messy?
Well, I've never had a cruller before.
I don't know. We'll hopefully be the first of many.
The festival is now a solid East Anglian institution with year-round staff.
I'm Bella Scarr. I run the Aldeburgh Food and Drink Festival. Even though it's only for one weekend a year, it's definitely a year-round job because we're a not-for-profit. There is a huge amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to raise the money needed to run the event, and then to obviously recruit the producers and make sure you're getting the right content, get all the chefs excited. So there's an awful lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and it's pretty much a year-round role.
There are lots of food festivals in Britain, but there are not many, hardly any, like Aldeburgh. And what would you say was special about the Aldeburgh Festival?
I think there are very few that only offer trading spaces to local food and drink producers. We're really strict on that. We give priority to Suffolk based, so within the county of Suffolk. The highest priority goes to businesses based in Suffolk using Suffolk ingredients. One of the things I really try to make sure of in this festival is that there's a real diversity of products as well. I think actually by having a big street food area, by having a big family area, loads of family activities that are free for the family, the fact we allow anyone under 16 to attend for free. Most events are only free for under 5s. For me, it's about wanting to involve and include and promote to a diverse audience by having a diverse group of producers.
Diverse and a place to try out new products. Every year they set aside half-price pitches for new producers, a section of the festival that particularly interests William Kendall.
So I'm Georgia, I grow mushrooms. So we're from Sporadic Fungi. We locally grow mushrooms in Langham in Colchester. And we basically got bored last winter, converted an old stable on a dairy farm, and we now grow a range of mushrooms. So we've got a range of oyster mushrooms, we've got lion's mane, we've got just seasoning blends, dried lion's powder, some grow kits. So we both work full time, it keeps us busy on the side.
So this is your first time at the festival, right?
It is, we only started up in April.
It's great that you're here, and it's great that you'll use, I think this sort of startup idea is great. We started a few years ago, and we've seen quite a few businesses that have sort of, thrived as a result of it. It was their first exposure.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm involved with a business making non-alcoholic drinks, and I met the founder, and she didn't really have any money, and she was selling to about 5 restaurants in London.
Yeah.
She came up here, and it was actually a really good way, because you've got 10,000 people who are interested in food and drink here, and you get this very intensive process, and you can see their reactions to it. So it's I often think that big companies who develop new products miss out on this whole stage of gestation. They don't really talk, they research it, but it's researched very, very sort of intensively, very scientifically, but actually you're not really talking to people in the street.
No, it's so true.
And this is this is a brilliant place to do it, because you really get feedback from people who are positive and enthusiastic, but they can be quite critical as well, and you learn some vital lessons. So
yeah, definitely. You never know how it's going to go, and I think that's why it's really nice to have that discounted rate to start with, and you're kind of testing the waters as to how it's going to go down with new customer base. But we've had an amazing day. It's been really well supported. We've built some really nice connections as well with other companies that we'll hopefully kind of do some collaborations with and things like that. So yeah, it's just been a great day.
Who have you talked to?
We spoke to someone who has got a walled garden in an area where we are, so we're hoping to do some kind of collaborations there. So that sounds really cool. Hopefully some kind of like chef nights where we can have some of our mushrooms. The people next door, the Food Museum, they do some educational workshops, so we're hoping to do some stuff with them kind of going forward. So yeah, it's just been a great day, kind of chatting to customers and other people that are here, so we've loved it.
We could easily fill this place up with wonderful artisan food from all over the country, but then it would be just like every other food festival. And I think what's different about it is that we're celebrating a local food economy, and people can come from far and wide. We get these wonderful chefs coming for free, but they're seeing how a local food economy can work and how it can evolve, and it can bring in encourage new people to start new things, just like you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we've had lots of discussions around that with customers today. Actually, it's so nice to know where your food's coming from, and that was kind of one of the big conversations I was having as well with the Food Museum, because actually lots of people don't know where food necessarily comes from. I used to work on a therapy farm and worked with a lot of children and adults that just bought food in a supermarket and didn't actually know the whole process before that. So yeah, it's been a great day, and yeah, we've really loved it.
I love this part of the world, and it is suited to producing delicious food and drink. And you need new youthful energy. Actually, you need people who are willing to make mistakes again. You want people who don't believe it when their friends and their family say stick to your day job and don't try it, because then nothing ever happens.
But the system has led to a food system which is generally dysfunctional. How do you begin to change that? Or are we looking at the beginnings?
I think we're looking at it. I think the food system is dysfunctional. We've got more people who are sick because of their diets. They're eating too much. They're eating the wrong food all over the world now. Everyone realises something needs to be done about it. The regulator won't regulate because they're terrified of being accused of causing the nanny state, whether they're on the right or the left. The change is coming from entrepreneurs. When I started as a food entrepreneur, most of my friends wanted to get jobs at McKinsey or Goldman Sachs. I was considered a complete weirdo because I went into early stage starting businesses. Now there's loads of them. Everybody wants to, not everybody, but lots of people want to do it, and it's so exciting. And there are opportunities because the system is so bad. We need disruptors. We need people who come in and reshape it from the bottom.
This festival of disruptors and entrepreneurs and the most delicious food has become networking central all year round for local farmers, producers and shopkeepers, as festival organiser Bella Scarr explained.
So off the back of this work, I actually set up the Food Producers Club, which basically happened because as the person that runs this festival, I'm in touch with 150 trading producers each year, and we're always oversubscribed. So there's more like 250 that I'm talking to. And they will all call me if they have a question that they're thinking I might be able to help with. And I realised I was the central point that everybody came to. And because they all called me, I would be able to say, don't worry, this person's also had the same trouble. Or don't worry, I know someone who's got some catering space that you could take over because they're looking for someone to take it over. And I realised there were all these conversations and all of them are having the same challenges. So I set up the Food Producers Club, which is just a kind of community group for food and drink producers. We just come together a few times a year, and I've set up a kind of like a 24-hour online forum chat place online. So that's been really successful. One of the interesting things we found out at my last event was that although so many of the producers know each other, they very rarely taste each other's product because they're always working on their own stall. So at one of our events we did a tasting, but tasting of producers for producers. So they're all tasting each other's products, realising how incredible, say, Alchemy Distillery's product is, and then all of a sudden we're getting Alchemy Distillery into the local pubs because they didn't realise how great it was and how unusual the product was. So all of that's coming from that, and that it's obviously there's an intricate link to the festival, but they're sort of separate entities to support each other.
That's completely brilliant, and it so interestingly links to what Caroline Cranbrook did when she did that study before the festival was set up, which she mapped the food web then, and each of those businesses didn't connect then, they didn't know their significance in this web. And what you're just describing is remarkable development.
Yeah, exactly that. I think they all need the support of each other in order to survive, particularly this tricky time. Everything is difficult for food businesses at the moment. The cost of ingredients, the cost of staff, the cost of any kind of operation has gone sky high, and for them to transfer that cost to a customer would probably make them unaffordable. So it's becoming a real challenge. So as well, the other side of this festival is that by bringing them together a lot, and we kind of thank them with a big sort of get together in November afterwards. And we really try and use that as a way to say, come be a community, help each other, talk to each other. And I actually started the Food Producers Club off the back of that because I realised how much they all needed each other.
The inspirational Bella Scarr, creating a food web within another food web. That community interconnection, working together, has never been more important. And it's something that matters a lot to that blow-in, as he happily calls himself, chef, hotelier and member of the Aldeburgh Festival board, George Pell. So we thought we'd give him the last word.
But do you have a sense that this entrepreneurship, this sharing, this support for each other is something that's going on elsewhere? I mean, are we looking at a change in the zeitgeist? I mean, you know, you were a London restaurateur. You came to this place and found this. You think there is a change?
I think in rural Britain there is. I think you look at the sort of up-and-coming towns and you know, you look at what's happened in Bristol, you look at the success of Abergavenny as a festival, you look at the success of Aldeburgh Food and Drink Festival. There's like, you know, there are moments, these are things built around community, they're built around that idea of network. I got involved with the festival was because I remember going to the Friday night supper and just being like, wow, you know, not only is there me and Emma and you know, people in Aldeburgh, there's people all over East Suffolk, and you kind of forget how many brilliant producers there are, you know, from beans at Hodmedod's to, you know, lamb and fishing, and it's an amazing county, you know, to Johnny Crickmore at Fen Farm making the best cheese in the country. You know, it's great. And if you stand in a room with all of those people, you get that energized sense of achievement, because there's a collective energy, there's a collective effort. And I think you see that so much more outside cities. You have to make time for it. Actually, it's the only way, without sounding drastic, it's the only way you can cope. It's the only way you can actually exist as a business, is to rely on each other, lean on each other, call in a favour. Food Festival helps, for me, feel part of that community and that critical mass. And, you know, I'll go back from the weekend knowing I've met 10 people I didn't know that are brilliant and brave and making hot sauce there, or growing chilies, or, you know what I mean? You meet these people. You need people like Will that lead the charge, and you know, Lady C. You need these people to do it, and then, you know, we're a wakeboard and we're having a laugh. I always look at what I do, I'm having the biggest laugh ever, you know. What a great life.
Thanks for listening. The producer was Robin Markwell from BBC Bristol, and as you might have gathered from what you've just heard, we both enjoyed making those recordings by the Suffolk Sea and the Snape Marshes.